maybe the biggest story in college football this season has been Michigan. Now, Jim Harbaugh has his boys at 8-0 and number 2 in the country. They are well on their way to making another college football playoff. They have a potential Heisman candidate in JJ McCarthy, yet that's not what people are talking about. To start this season, Harbaugh was suspended by Michigan for some recruiting violations, and now here we are with some very serious sign stealing allegations. The NCAA is now investigating Michigan. Now, let me get this out of the way. Sign stealing is legal in college football. It's just a matter of how you do it. And right now, it appears that Michigan's been doing it not just illegally, but super illegally. You can't off-campus scout and you can't take videos of opposing coaches, and it sounds like that is exactly what Michigan has been doing to get an edge. And this appears to be a very elaborate, complicated system, and everything comes down to this guy named Connor Stalions. Now, Stalions is a low-level staff member. He's actually been suspended with pay since these allegations. He's a diehard Michigan fan. He's 28. He went to the Naval Academy and later served in the Marine Corps. He was hired as an off-the-field analyst by Michigan back in May of 2022, at least according to his LinkedIn. He's been accused of placing different people in stadiums of Michigan opponents to scout and sometimes even film the signals, both of which are very, very illegal. There were also some leaked text messages, which he said that pre-COVID, he was actually stealing signs by watching the games on TV of opponents, and then he'd be there on the sideline for Michigan come game time, and he'd be able to decipher what the pressure was going to look like or what play call was coming. Stalions has purchased tickets to games involving Big Ten teams and some potential college football playoff opponents. He was actually using the names of family members to buy a lot of the tickets, and it's now come out that they've been able to trace back tickets to 12 of 13 Big Ten schools games. Apparently, the one school where they didn't doesn't actually have access to StubHub and secondary markets, apparently. Not sure what school it is. Couldn't actually figure that out, but my guess is it'd be all 13. He also bought tickets to 4 schools outside of the Big Ten that were in contention for the college football playoff, and has also purchased tickets for the 2021 and 2022 SEC title games. Allegedly, he had a network of at least 3 people that lived around the country, and he just sent them tickets. There are allegedly records that show that Michigan was sending scouts to over 40 games this season, costing over $15,000. And I think one of the big questions is going to be who's paying for that and where's that money coming from? By the way, 8 of those games included Ohio State. That Ohio State-Michigan rivalry cannot be understated. And honestly, if Harbaugh would have continued to lose, he may have legitimately been fired. So it makes sense that is such a priority, but they may not be going about it in a very fair way. There also have been some pictures of the actual scouts, some of which are current students working as interns for the football program. People have even done a deep dive into Stalions' Venmo, which is actually now deleted, but there were a lot of payments that actually did line up with the games and games that they potentially would have scouts at. Now, this is where it gets really crazy for Stalions. He has a document between 550 to 600 pages that has a blueprint for the future of Michigan football called the Michigan Manifesto. He sounds like an evil genius. Now, I'm telling you right now, never when somebody's used a manifesto has it been good or ended well, at least in my opinion. This thing just sounds dirty. And the way Michigan got caught is wild. An external investigative firm tipped off the NCAA. It got this off from computer drives accessed by Michigan coaches. Now there's just a ton of questions of how Michigan did turn things around, because Michigan didn't win more than 10 games in any of Harbaugh's first 6 years. COVID was by far his worst season at Michigan when there weren't fans, so you probably couldn't send somebody in to just record the sideline. And then suddenly everything turned around. Michigan went 12-2 in 2021, and then in 2022 they went 13-1 and lost to TCU 51-45 in the playoff. Now, apparently Sonny Dykes and TCU hilariously knew about the sign stealing and used dummy signals. So in that game where Michigan gave up 51 points, TCU would call a certain play, try to audible into something different, and then just stick with the original play. And Michigan would have no idea. They wouldn't be able to decipher the signals. And clearly that game went very differently. But it also shows that this wasn't exactly hush hush. People knew about that. Coaches in the Big Ten have thought Michigan was stealing signs actually for a while now. And a lot of that does come back to Connor Stalions. He's usually positioned right next to defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, and there must be a reason for that, and it's because he's telling you what the play call is going to be, what the pressure is going to look like. And it really doesn't seem that insane to think that Jim Harbaugh would bend the rules to get an edge. Already, he's under NCAA investigation for recruiting violations during that COVID-19 dead period. Now, he's denied any wrongdoing of that. He's denied any wrongdoing or any knowledge of a plan to steal signals. Now, we really just have to sit back and wait and see what happens. Now, it could be the Big Ten that goes after Jim Harbaugh first. It could also be the NCAA. It's hard to say what will happen because there hasn't been a sign stealing scandal this big in college football before. Who really knows what's going to happen at this point? Theoretically, this shouldn't affect Michigan's college football playoff ranking or JJ McCarthy's Heisman run, but you never know. I think there's going to be a lot of internal bias when it comes to that stuff, and maybe the voters are going to look down on Michigan for this whole mess. But really, this just does not look good for Jim Harbaugh. I wouldn't be completely shocked if all of a sudden he just dips for the NFL out of nowhere. Teams are certainly going to be calling. There's been rumors before, and if he's going to get in all this trouble at the college level, it might be best for him to make the jump. He's going to be in hot water if all this gets found out. Some of it, I will say, I think has been overblown to a degree. When it comes to college football, everybody steals signs. It's really part of the game, and you even have some specific people on staff that are trying to decipher signals. The issue, it just really comes down to how you're trying to steal those signals, and Michigan is really doing it in essentially the most illegal way possible. And this reminds me a lot of that Houston Astros scandal not too long ago. The Astros were sign stealing. They had a ton of success, and they've still been very good even after that whole blow up, and maybe that could be the case with Michigan as well. But everybody steals signs in baseball, especially at the major league level. The issue was how they were doing it, because you can steal signs, but you can't use technology. No matter what happens now, everybody is going to question how good Michigan has been, why they've been so good, and you really do have to wonder how much of this success does come back to cheating, because in the Harbaugh era before, they were really struggling. They couldn't beat Ohio State. Now, all of a sudden, they're a true powerhouse in college football and are a top team in the country again. And maybe it's because they are cheating.